let's talk about what I put in my pack when I go into the woods. In the situation we're talking about, we're hunting. Now, scenarios differ. If I were going to be going into the Rockies for a week, that's different. So scenarios may differ, but specifically here, I only want to talk about what it is that I put in my pack in case I have to, for whatever reason, stay in the woods a little longer than I planned. So I kind of remember the rule of threes. You can survive about 3 minutes without oxygen. You can survive about 3 hours in extreme weather conditions. You can survive about 3 days without water and about 3 weeks without food. So I don't plan on being out here 3 weeks. So granola bars are nice. That's not what I'm talking about here. We go into the woods in a scenario in the evening, afternoon, evening, we go to do a hunt. And for whatever reason, something happens. We either fall in a hole, break our leg. We fall from the deer stand or partially up the deer stand. We get lost in the woods. We get turned around. Something happens that we didn't know. So we want to kind of be prepared for those types of situations. So remembering the rule of threes, oxygen is probably not going to run out. But we have about 3 hours we can deal with extremes. We know at night it's going to get cooler. So one of the things I think everyone should put in their pack is some type of we'll call it an outer shell, a light jacket. There's a couple of reasons for this. One is it can keep you dry. If it were to rain, it can help keep you dry. It can also help keep you warm with the cooler temperatures that might come at night. So everyone should take some type of small shell, even if you have all your other hunting gear in your pack, like a grunt call, or whatever else binoculars you might be using for hunting. Have a shell. A shell is really important in case you had to spend the night in the woods. Now, if you're in an area in the wintertime, deep winter, and you already have a lot of clothing on, that's probably less of an issue. If you're turkey hunting in the spring or early deer hunting in the fall, in bow season, early season, this becomes a bigger deal because you're in warmer weather. You might be in the deer stand in a t-shirt, and something were to happen, you might need a shell. Another thing that is critical in the woods is some type of fire starter. Now, a lot of people will come up with these more primitive things that they'll put in their pack, magnesium, whatever it might be, flint. If you're in a survival situation in the woods for a long period of time, that's great. That's not the scenario we're talking about. The scenario we're talking about is an overnight. Put one of these in your pack. Now, this is a bigger one because I prefer the ones that are wind resistant. It's basically a butane torch that you can see. We've all tried to light a fire with a big lighter and the wind's blowing and we're having trouble getting it to stay lit. This solves that problem. Something like this in your pack. Fire is very important for many reasons. Number one, it can keep you warm. We already talked about extreme weather conditions. It can keep you warm. Number two, it keeps predators at bay. It's also a huge psychological boost. The fact that you have fire and you're stuck in the woods, it can really lift your morale because now you have a way to boil water. You have a way to stay warm if you had to. You have a way to cook food if you had to. So just the morale factor of having fire is a huge boost. Along with this, put a few cotton balls in your pack. Cotton balls are great fire starter, and you should put just a few of those in the bottom of your pack. They take up no room whatsoever, and that could really help you. For some reason, as a backup on this one, don't ask me why, but in this pack I have 2 additional big lighters, so they just don't take up much room, and it keeps me from having a bad situation. Another thing that is critical is, remember the rule of threes. You can survive without water for about 3 days. But remember, with water, when you become dehydrated, you can't think soundly. Other things in your body, you get a headache, there are other symptoms. We, we want to be in a situation where if we stayed overnight, the next morning we're at least able to have clear thought processes. So in most situations we would have a bottle of water with us. But let's say for whatever reason we run out, and so I always take a personal filtration straw. Most of us know Life Straw. This one is actually made by Sawyer, but I can throw this in my pack, and if for some reason I get turned around in the area of the woods in Georgia where I'm at, there's actually a creek back here behind me. As long as it's not standing, stagnant water, like a creek like this, I'd feel totally fine drinking out of that creek, and I have drank out of that creek with one of these straws. Being able to stay hydrated is a huge psychological boost. It's a big help in getting you through a bad situation. So everyone should have some type of personal filtration system that they take with them in the woods. Another thing you should have in the woods is some type of knife, a cutting tool. Now, depending on the situation and where I'm hunting, I may have more than one. This particular knife by Tie Knives, I can take this little guy in the woods, it's a pocket knife, and it sits right in my pocket. It's not a problem. If I needed it, I could help start a fire with that, simply because if I don't have cotton balls, I can cut some Firestarter. But having a cutting tool is so useful, even if you don't end up in a survival situation. It's just a useful tool to have anytime you're in the woods, even in your deer stand. Another thing you should have is, you'll see hooked to the bottom of my pack is some paracord. I think you need some kind of cordage whenever you go to the woods. And the reason is, cordage can be used for lots and lots of different things. Cordage, I can use cordage if I were to cut my leg. I can use cordage as a tourniquet without having to have a separate tourniquet kit in my pack. I can tie it around my leg, use a stick, I can crank that thing down and create a tourniquet. I can also use this for creating a very small makeshift lean-to type of shelter that I could get in under, help keep me out of the elements a little bit. I can make a sling for my arm if I needed to. There's so many things I can do with cordage that are really useful in the woods. Everybody ought to put some little bit of cordage. I put a carabiner on the bottom of my pack here, and I literally just hang paracord by it from that, and it works. It's there. Even if I don't need it for a survival situation, if all I need it for is to tie something to my pack, I have it. Really an important thing to have. Obviously, there are some other things that, if we wanted to go further, could be helpful, like flashlight. Obviously, cell phone. If you have your cell phone battery, you might can call for help, but in the area where I hunt here, if I get down in this bottom, I don't have any coverage. So that doesn't really work for helping me in my situation. If I were to fall down in this bottom and break my leg, I would have a challenge getting back up this hill. So even though someone may be looking for me, I don't know when they're going to be here. And this gives me, having a few things in my pack overnight gives me a little bit of peace of mind. The statistics show that whenever something bad happens, if you can just survive the first 72 hours, they talk about it with hurricanes and other natural disasters, earthquakes. Well, in the woods, your survivability becomes much greater with every hour that passes. So if you can just make it through hour to hour, someone's going to find you in most cases. They know you're out in the woods hunting. But a few things, having a way to start fire, having a way that I can get some water out of this creek, having a way to make a tourniquet, having a knife if I need it, is critical. The last thing I think no one should go in the woods without is an analog watch. Most of us rely on a compass, but let's just say you don't have it. We too often rely on the electronic compass that might be on our phone, our smartphone, whatever device we have, but that may fail. An analog watch is invaluable because our goal is to get out of here the next morning once it's daylight, because let me tell you, wandering around in the dark is not a good idea at all. Things can get worse. The next morning, okay, if you have an analog watch and you don't have anything else, no compass, I have this on me anyway, I can tell my direction. If you'll look at our other video that we have about a couple of ways to tell direction without a compass, be right up here in the corner. You can click on that link, and there's 2 ways that will show you to find your way, your direction in a situation where you're lost without having a compass. One of those is, and the easiest, is really an analog watch. So take a look at that video. Hope these things are helpful. When you go in the woods, the key to having a good hunt is being safe. So we want to make sure everyone's safe. We want to make sure if someone does have an unforeseen accident and gets stuck in the woods, that they can survive. It's not going to be probably the end of the world for them. It's not going to be a disaster. But to have a few things to keep you from shivering all night, to have some type of water and a few little things to help, can really help your mental game in getting out of that situation. So I hope that helps. Lots of things you could take in the woods other than what I said. This is not the end-all list. It's just an idea of some things that can make a big difference if you get stuck in the woods. Y'all have a great day.